Hey everybody, this is Sarah TV Russell, and we are working on some meditation techniques today for 200-hour yoga teacher training. So all you need right now, if you've got your Yantra packet, make sure you've got your Yantra available. The simpler ones are going to be what we're looking at today, just a round circle with a dot in the middle. And then if you want to have your meditation cushion or some blankets or something so that you're comfortable, that would be great. So let's go ahead and meet on our mat. All right, so we're going to just start this mainly with a conversation. And so there are all different types of ways to teach meditation. And there's a lot of different types of meditation and theories about how to meditate. But when we are beginners, when it comes to meditation, we think that we have to completely clear the mind. We can't be distracted. It has to be perfectly quiet, or we have to have our weird music on. But what I want you to recognize is that we all meditate in different ways. And so there's moving meditation, which most runners or cyclists experience when you're in your vinyasa flow on the mat. Moving and flowing, you may be feeling a state of mental clarity and meditation, a meditation state. And so we're trying to find that when we're in a seated position. So when we start to develop our seat, there are plenty of excuses that we have not to do it. Time is always an issue. Finding comfort because our feet fall asleep, our legs fall asleep, our hips get tight. You might even find that you can't even have an erect spine. So that's why having that meditation cushion underneath you is really going to help. So let's just talk about the seat to start with. So any seat works. We can do little cushions, big pillows, stacks of blankets, bolsters. Blocks work well for some people. This is my meditation cushion. I love it. I take it everywhere I go. And it helps with the comfort. It's the perfect height, and I can kind of squish my tush right on in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do a side view of where we want to sit. So I'll just show you kind of, if I'm not really warmed up or something, sometimes the spine starts to curl a little bit like this. And that's not helping any of that balance of my chakras or my nadi system. And it's not elongating the spine. I'm not getting the full decent breath. And pranayama is going to play a huge role in the way that we meditate. So really important that we can take that full breath. So sitting up on that cushion is going to help enable us to have that strong spine, so we're not focused on that the whole time. So what we want to do is we want to find the center of our cushion, kind of find your way down, whatever it is you're sitting on. Then you're going to roll forward, so we start to tilt the pelvis a little bit. You want those sit bones right at the edge, and then the legs comfortably resting. So everybody's height that they're sitting on is different. When in doubt, add a little bit of height. You can also do this in a chair. What we want to do if we're in a chair is we want to sit with our soles of our feet flat on the floor, so you're probably not going to be leaned up against the back. And the sit bones are going to be towards the edge of your chair seat. So go ahead and start to find your meditation seat right now. And I have to say the hardest part of any teacher training, I believe, is probably finding that seat, building your home practice. We talk about a home practice a lot in teacher training. And I think a lot of people don't know what a home practice is. So when we talk about building that home practice, especially when we're talking about means of self-care, which we'll get to later in a couple modules, we are talking about that time that you dedicate to you. And preferably we want it to be how you start and or end your day, okay? Because we're trying to set the tone. So if you begin your sit first thing in the morning when you pop out of bed, even if you're not a morning person, you'll start to build some patterns that start to really work for you and your body and set the tone for the rest of your day. Those meditations can have focuses on a mantra. So if there's something that you're working on, maybe bringing abundance into your life, that mantra can have something to do with that. A mantra is actually an active phrase that we are something, right? Oftentimes we use Sanskrit because of the nature of our yoga practice, but it can be in any language that you want. So let's just say that I'm talking about an abundance meditation. So if I'm focused on an abundance meditation and I want to use a mantra, I am going to have a present tense mantra, not something in the future, not something behind me. I'm focused on now. So even if my bank account's sitting at 0 and I'm a little stressed out with the lack of time in my life, my mantra is, I am abundant, right? It's not I will be abundant. It's not I was abundant and I'll get there again. It's I am abundant. So you can always begin every mantra, I am, and then you get to fill that in. There are some mantras that we talk about and think about in our practice and meditate through, where I am is the phrase, I am a human being. Oftentimes we forget that we're human beings and we think that we're humans doing, right? Because we're constantly doing something. And so this is your time to sit and focus. In our 200-hour training, you are required to complete contemplations on a weekly basis. Those contemplations are writing examples that they're writing about something that you just read about to kind of cue something in your mind and body. So for instance, if we have a contemplation about creating faith over fear, right? Or building something out of nothing, or becoming a yoga teacher, for instance, or setting new habits or new examples for others, living that yogic path with the yamas and niyamas. So if that's our focus in our contemplation, we're writing and reading about something like that, and then we kind of settle into whatever thoughts came up from that writing or that reading. I tend to read something, sit, and then write about the experience that I had. And oftentimes, I can't think of an experience that I had while I was in my sit because I was finding that space of complete stillness for myself. That takes decades of practice, so don't feel like you have to get that overnight. Also, when you are starting your meditation practice, really important, I want you to not feel like you have to sit for 30 minutes or a half an hour because that's what they did on one of those websites or a YouTube video that you saw. So today we're only doing examples of meditations. We're not actually going to sit, we're going to partially do some meditations so you can start to find your way in. All of the meditations that we're working on in our 200-hour are going to be tied into pranayama, and they're going to be visualizations that we tend to work through the breath to get to. So that's not always what we're going to do. There's a couple that are going to stand out, one being this Yantra meditation. You can see it in front of me. And that's the one we're going to start with. When we have something to visualize and our students have something to visualize, it becomes a little bit easier for someone to learn something for the first time. So let's not make excuses. Let's get on our mat and just get to it right now. So I want to talk about our yantra. You've got several yantras in your packet. Here's an example of a couple of them. And find your simplest one. I know we've got another one that's even more simple than this one. It's got the light circle as opposed to the heavy circle. But pick out one of these two right now for this very first exercise. So a yantra is a geometric symbol, and it has special properties in it, different geometrical shapes. So, triangles, either upside down or right side up. It's got lines. It's got different variations in it, so that each one is representative of some sort of subtle energy. Okay, and so what we're doing is that we're bringing it in as our focal point. And so I'm going to use this yantra today. And so we're going to just have a really simple practice with the yantra. The yantras can be very complex. In our mandala program, we build really elaborate mandalas when we're doing our visualizations. And this is very simple. We're starting small so that we can expand from there. And so in this yantra meditation, I want you to place your circle with the dot in the middle, somewhere in the middle of your gaze. Okay, it can be up in front of you, it can be down on the ground. I want you to take a deep breath, inhale, fill the lungs, exhale, press everything out of the lungs, and look forward at that space. Just take a moment, see if you can really find the patience to trace with your eyes all the way around the circle, and then trace that center circle and then color it in. So take a moment there. Now, if already you're like, I can't even get my mind to focus all the way around that circle, that's okay. This is all just the beginning steps. But what you're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn the palms face up or down. If you're needing a little bit more energy, you can turn your palms up. This is that receiver position. If you're feeling a little anxious about this practice today, or you've had a really busy day, you can go ahead and place the palms down to kind of relax and be really fully absorbed inside for a moment. And just take a few rounds of breath as you gaze at your yantra, this geometric shape that you've got in front of you. So as you gaze at this shape, I want you to notice how big it is from where you're sitting, the perspective of it. I want you to pay attention to the depth of color. So this is a black and white printout, so paying attention to that. And noticing if there are any asymmetries within the circle, just really seeing it. Once you feel like you have seen the whole circle, you've really traced it, you can begin to close your eyes. And as you breathe effortlessly in and out, begin to see that circle and that dot in the center. And each time you lose focus, if you can't draw that full circle, you can open your eyes and look back at that yantra. So try this for just a moment more. Normally, we would be talking about the breath a little bit with our students, but most importantly, we want them to be able to visualize. And I want you to be able to visualize this yantra in your mind's eye. That's what we're doing, we're drawing it out. That way, as our mind becomes settled, as we get more and more practiced in our meditation seat, we can start taking on more elaborate yantras, such as rebuilding this in your mind's eye, right? We can also build something like this in your mind's eye and even fill it in with other geometric shapes. You'll notice from your handout packet that you've got a little key on what each shape represents, and you can also Google that and find some other stuff as well. It's not the exhaustive list. So from here, just take a couple of deep breaths and really see if you can visualize that yantra. See if that's something that you can work through this week, each day, maybe sitting for a couple of minutes, 2 to 5 minutes, visualizing that in your mind's eye, opening up your eyes whenever you need to, letting the gaze go really soft. If closing your eyes doesn't work, just allowing this to be somewhere off in the distance where you can focus on it completely relaxed, no distractions from the outside world, just letting everything else give you tunnel vision right into that point. And see if you can draw it out from there. So that's just a beginning visualization meditation technique that you can use as you start to find your way a little deeper into your meditation practice. So the number one thing that I hear from students when they are unable to meditate is, I don't have time. And I think that if we don't have time to meditate, we don't really have time for anything else. What we want to do is create this habit and practice, just like we do when we brush our teeth in the morning and at night, just as we get dressed. We never say, oh, I didn't have time to brush my teeth this morning. I mean, I hope you don't do that. But we want to make and create space so that it becomes part of our normal routine and feels like part of your morning end process or evening process. So getting that comfort, the time, also just the space that you have to do it in. If you've got children running around like crazy, I understand that as well. But hopefully you can just lock the door of your bathroom, sit down on your bathroom rug, and just take a few moments to breathe. The mind, we have something that we refer to in meditation and yoga called the monkey mind. So the way that my teacher, Shambhavananda, explained it to me was, if we imagine the way that a monkey might climb a tree or a pole, and instead of coming down the same side that they climb up, they just make it a little bit more difficult, climb to the top, and then maybe climb down the other side. And so when our monkey mind gets the best of us, as we're climbing, maybe we get distracted, right? We get into our meditation about halfway up, and then we're like, oh, something's shiny. Maybe I'm gonna come down. Maybe I'm gonna go all the way up, sit on that perch, look around, and then come down the other side. You can also equate that with the breath. Inhaling up, pause, exhale, come down. So that's the beauty of the monkey mind, is we can rein it in, and we can bring it into that imagination of climbing a flagpole or a tree and letting the breath be that monkey mind. Inhaling up, pause, exhaling down, pause, climbing back up the other side. So the monkey mind has a tendency to wander. when we are learning how to meditate, we feel like we're told you just clear your mind of all thoughts. Well, that's impossible. None of us are sages living on mountaintops. We engage in the world. Oftentimes you'll hear a siren go by or dogs barking in the background, or like I said, children playing. And if we can start to incorporate that into our practice, that's going to make things a lot easier for us. So I want you to just stay in your comfortable seat for a moment. You can use that yantra if that helped you. And I want you to just take a moment to focus on the breath. So we've got our guided visualizations, which are in your packet as well. And so you can read through those, but I want you to focus on just the breath right now. That's where our meditation is going to go. So if you need a visualization, focus on the yantra, or invite watching a monkey climb up one side and down the other side of a tree or a pole. So close your eyes, sit up nice and tall, relax the hands in the lap or on the knees, and just begin to observe the breath. And you don't have to do anything but observe it. And so you'll notice that as you observe the breath, you innately begin to change it. It changes all on its own without you having to do anything. So now you start to notice things about the breath, right? Because you're paying attention. And just by paying attention, it shifts. Maybe it got a little deeper. Maybe you were able to check in and see where tension is in the breath, whether it's in the shoulders and neck, maybe it's down in the hips where you're seated, maybe your feet are falling asleep, and that's what you keep focusing on instead of the breath itself. Notice the qualities of the breath. When you inhale, do you feel the ribs expand in all directions, or do you feel just your chest rising? So I want you to think about the way that the body can expand and contract. Open and close, and how that relates to our vinyasa practice. As we have a pose and then a counter pose, right? The yin and the yang. And it comes back to that old adage, what goes up must come down. So let the monkey climb the pole. See if the monkey mind starts to come up with your to-do list. Exhale, let the monkey come down the pole. Okay, so calming the monkey mind is something that's a constant work in progress for all of us. Our yoga practice and our meditation practice is just that. It is practice. So what I'd like you to do is take the time to work on each of the guided meditations. You are more than welcome to contact your mentor or me to help walk you through it. But see if you have one that stands out for you, most importantly. Really read it, reread it, understand it, feel it, and see if you can do it all on your own. I invite you to turn your ringer off on your phone and set a timer for maybe 3 or 4 minutes at first, and just focus on that visualization. Focus on the observation of the breath, and then just see what transpires. We're not trying to master anything. We're simply starting a new, wonderful habit that's going to serve you for the rest of your life. So I just want to thank you all for tuning in. This has been just a quick little demo and conversation about starting a home practice. Please read your homework, use your yantra. You're going to be creating a yantra this week as well, so please do that. And then, of course, looking through your guided meditations, I will be leading a pendulum breath to send us out today, which is my favorite guided meditation. So go ahead and eat and sit up nice and tall, palms face up or down. And with the eyes closed, begin to see a pendulum in your mind's eye, moving from side to side with the breath. So as you inhale, watch the pendulum move towards one ear. As you exhale, watch it move to the other ear. This breath becomes very relatable to our vinyasa practice, which we'll see in momentarily, hopefully. So once you see that pendulum, it doesn't matter how big it is or small it is, how far away it feels or how close it feels. It's yours and yours alone. It's any color, any texture and material. and it takes up as much or as little space as possible. You can change the qualities of it by either willing it to be so, which is oftentimes a little bit of a challenge and a trick in our meditation. And you can also think about relating it to the length of the breath. So as you inhale a little longer, a little more deeply, maybe it grows bigger or swings further. So once you have that down, you're watching that pendulum swing side to side. Go ahead and feel the in-breath pull in one direction and feel that momentary pause just as the pendulum drops in the other direction due to what would be gravity if it were happening in reality. And then there's this moment of suspension and pause before it releases again with the next breath. So begin to pay special attention to that place where the breath changes direction. Inhale, pause. Exhale, pause. So something happens, it becomes weightless on each end of the breath. And there's a moment of complete and total stillness where nothing is happening. Nothing is coming in, nothing is going out. And so what if we began to relate our vinyasa practice when we move on the mat? The inhale is that movement between the postures. The posture itself is that space between the breaths in this situation. We move to the next posture, pause in the pose, and release. So don't worry about the vinyasa part yet, just focus on building space at the ends of each breath. One ends, one begins. See if you can create a little bit more space, a micro moment between the inhale and the exhale. See what that feels like. You might even find your body starting to sway a little bit. That's a natural response. If you're struggling to see the pendulum, let it be very simple. Just watch it move back and forth or front to back, whatever feels good. If you feel like you've already gotten in the swing of this, no pun intended, obviously, what I want you to do now is see if you can change some part of it. Can you change the color? Can you change its range? How can you make some sort of tweak? And that's where that mind comes in to help draw us into that breath a little bit. So this is one I come back to over and over and over again. You're welcome to sit in it just for a moment more while I discuss vinyasa here. But we've learned Surya Namaskar A and B, and I want you to think about it. When we move on our mat, one breath, one movement, we inhale and take the arms up. We exhale and we forward fold. We inhale into that halfway lift, right? We exhale into our chaturanga. Inhale into the up dog or cobra. Exhale, push back to down dog. So we're moving on the breath. The poses are the places between the breath, and we start to recognize that the places between the breath and the act of the breath itself are all this continuous importance. But we also recognize that if the pose is where we're going, the destination is where we're going, that space between the breath becomes so much more important. And so I hope you can look at your breath and your vinyasa practice just a little bit differently now. We're going to move into pranayama in just a moment. Practice these guided meditations. Focus on the breath. See what kind of meditations that you can come up with. What can you relate to? Like I said, visualizations are going to be some of the easiest meditations for you to start with, having a physical piece of paper or a physical candle in front of you where you can watch a flame. And then also relating the breath in that pranayama to a movement or a sensation or something that you can almost physically relate to will help you work your way into your practice. So I want to thank you all so much for taking this short amount of time to learn a little bit more about meditation. And I look forward to talking to you about pranayama soon. Thank you all so much. Namaste.